So, this happened a few weeks ago, and I've only recently recovered enough emotionally to tell it. I, 27M, have been dating my girlfriend, Mia, 25F, for almost 2 years. Things have been going great. She's funny, smart, super chill, and we mesh in all the right ways. We recently moved in together, and it's been the best time of my life. However, her family? Total opposite. Mia's family is old school, Southern, ultra-conservative, religious to the point of prayers before brushing your teeth conservative. I'm talking no shorts above the knee, no cursing, no alcohol unless it's communion levels of conservative. I've met them maybe 3 times. Each time felt like I was walking on a minefield of manners and modesty, and I'm not exactly known for my filter or my fashion sense. Anyway, Mia's grandmother passed away. This woman was the matriarch of the family and practically worshipped like a saint. When she died, it wasn't just a funeral, it was a week-long series of ceremonies, prayer nights, and gatherings. Mia asked me to come with her for the final day, the burial, and a small reception afterward. I agreed, knowing it would mean a lot to her, but I was nervous. I packed my one decent suit and tried to mentally prepare for a day of quiet nodding and avoiding controversial topics like rock music or oat milk. What I didn't prepare for was the fact that the funeral was being held outdoors, in the deep, sweltering heat of a southern summer. The service was at a small, beautiful country church with a large open field behind it where they held the burial. There was a long walk from the church to the gravesite, probably a quarter mile, and everyone was dressed in black. The moment I stepped outside in my full black suit and tie, I started sweating like I was being interrogated for murder. By the time we got to the gravesite, I was drenched. And here's the first real mistake I made. I didn't wear an undershirt. Just a button-down under my jacket. It was clinging to me like saran wrap, and I was starting to feel faint. I wasn't about to faint in front of this woman's casket, so I quietly stepped away toward the treeline, behind some bushes, to take off my jacket and try to cool down. This is where everything starts to spiral. Behind the bushes, I thought, okay, no one can see me here. I just need to get this jacket off and maybe air out my shirt. I slipped off the jacket and hung it on a low branch. That's when I noticed my shirt had actual sweat puddles in the armpits and lower back. I figured I'd undo a few buttons and let the breeze do its thing. So I unbuttoned most of the shirt, pulled it open like a guy who's way too into himself at a club, and tried to cool down. At this moment, I also realized I had worn boxer briefs with flamingo print under my suit pants.
Why?
Because I didn't think anyone would see them. They were a gag gift for Mia on Valentine's Day, and they're bright. Like neon pink flamingos on a turquoise background bright. I unzipped just a little to untuck my shirt and let some air in. My belt was digging into me, and I needed to breathe. So there I am, shirt open, belt undone, pants slightly unzipped, fanning myself like a man on the verge of death. Then I hear a snap behind me. I turn around and there's a boy, maybe 8 years old, just staring at me like I'm an alien. I don't know how long he'd been there, but he took one look at my half-naked, disheveled self with flamingo underwear peeking out and screamed. Now I'm freaking out. I rush to zip up, and asterisk, asterisk, RIP, asterisk, asterisk. I catch the edge of my shirt in the zipper. It tears. Not just a little. We're talking straight down the front, leaving one side hanging like a cape. I look like a hot mess, and now I'm partially exposed. The boy runs off toward the group by the gravesite, yelling something like, "There's a half-naked man in the woods," and suddenly, I hear footsteps. It's Mia. And her mother. Mia sees me, eyes wide, and just goes, "What are you doing?" I'm standing there, shirt torn open, tie dangling like a noose, pants barely holding on, holding a jacket like it's going to protect me from judgment. I try to explain, but her mom is already turning red, and not from the sun. "I knew he was inappropriate," she whispers, loud enough for me to hear. Mia throws me the coldest look I've ever gotten and just says, "Get in the car." I walk past the entire family. Everyone is staring. Her uncle looks like he's about to throw holy water on me. The pastor shakes his head like he just watched me kick Jesus. Back at the car, I try to explain. I tell Mia I was overheating. I didn't think anyone could see me. I wasn't doing anything inappropriate. She listens mostly in silence and then bursts out laughing. Hysterically. Turns out the whole situation was so absurd, even she couldn't stay mad. But the damage was done. For the next 2 hours at the post-funeral reception at her aunt's house, I had to wear an old church hoodie they found in the back of someone's minivan and sweatpants with a cross on the thigh. No one spoke to me directly. Not even eye contact. Someone offered me lemonade and then immediately took it back when they realized who I was. Mia told me later her cousin's kid thought I was a weird forest stripper. Needless to say, I will never be invited to another family gathering. I've gone from the guy Mia's dating to the guy who undressed in the Lord's presence. Mia finds it hilarious. Her family, not so much. Moral of the story: don't wear flamingo underwear to funerals. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by going to a silent meditation retreat with a secret I couldn't keep quiet. A few months ago, I was in a rough place mentally. My job was grinding me down. I'd just come out of a messy breakup, and I was basically surviving on caffeine, podcasts, and existential dread. My therapist gently suggested that maybe I should disconnect for a bit and look into mindfulness. I did a quick Google search and found this highly rated 10-day silent meditation retreat a few hours from where I live. I figured, what better way to reboot my brain than to be quiet in the woods with some other broken people? I signed up impulsively. No phones, no talking, no books, no writing. Just being present and meditating 10 hours a day. It sounded like a nightmare, but also maybe what I needed. It was held in this old converted monastery in the mountains. Very peaceful. Very rustic. I showed up with a duffel bag and way too much deodorant. Now here's where I messed up. A week before the retreat, my roommate gave me some edibles, THC-infused gummies, as a joke birthday gift. I'm not a big weed guy, but I've taken them before to help me sleep. Since I was nervous about the retreat and figured I wouldn't be able to sleep on the first night, I packed a couple in my toiletry bag. Just in case. Totally forgot about them after that. Flash forward to day 3 of the retreat. By now, I've entered a weird state of hyper-awareness. The silence is intense. You start to notice the sound of your own heartbeat, the rustling of your pants when you walk, the creak of floorboards like thunder. Everyone is deep in their own quiet little worlds. I hadn't spoken in 72 hours, and my inner monologue was starting to feel like a TED Talk on mushrooms. That night, I couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts. Too much buzzing in my head. I remembered the gummies and figured one wouldn't hurt. I popped one, tucked myself back under my monk-style wool blanket, and waited for dreams. Except I forgot how strong they were. About 45 minutes later, I was fully, cosmically high. And not the mellow kind. I'm talking giggling at the ceiling, questioning the nature of time, paranoid that my thoughts are too loud kind of high. I was tripping balls in complete silence, surrounded by strangers who were all trying to achieve enlightenment, while I was internally spiraling because I thought my breathing sounded suspiciously like dubstep. I tried to calm myself down by focusing on my breath, like they taught us. But instead of finding inner peace, I became obsessed with how weird noses are. I couldn't stop thinking about the shape of my nostrils. I was convinced everyone could hear me thinking about my nose. I started sweating and thought maybe I was going to die in this monastery, and my last thought would be about nostrils. Then I got the munchies. There's no food access after dinner, and the kitchen is locked at night. But I remembered that I had stashed some almonds in my bag for after the retreat. So I snuck out of my room at 2 a.m. like a stone ninja in socks, tiptoeing down the ancient wooden hallway that echoed like a cathedral. Every floorboard creak sounded like an air raid siren. I was sweating profusely and deeply aware of every molecule in my body. I got to my room, unzipped the duffel bag, found the almonds, and promptly spilled the entire bag across the floor. Have you ever tried to pick up 200 tiny, rolling almonds in pitch darkness, while on the edge of a THC-induced panic attack. It felt like trying to do surgery with oven mitts. Every time I grabbed one, 3 more skittered away. I was crawling around like Gollum on a snack hunt. Eventually, I gave up and just laid face down on the cold tile, surrounded by rogue almonds and the crushing weight of my bad decisions. The next morning, during our 5 a.m. group meditation, I was still semi-high and completely wrecked from not sleeping. We were all sitting in total silence in the main hall. The teacher was gently guiding us through some visualization, something about a mountain and your breath being the wind. And that's when it happened. Someone's stomach growled, loudly. And for some reason, it hit me like the funniest thing I'd ever heard. I tried to hold it in. I really did. But the dam broke. I started to laugh. Not just a little chuckle. I mean full body, wheezing, tears streaming laughter. In a room of 30 silent, meditating people. I tried to cover it up as a cough. Then a sneeze. Then a seizure. None of it worked. I was just this human cackling engine in a sea of tranquil souls. The teacher opened one eye and looked directly at me. That somehow made it worse. When it finally stopped, I left the hall like a shameful Victorian ghost and locked myself in the bathroom to regroup. But the damage was done. Later that day, one of the assistant teachers silently passed me a note that said, "If you need to leave the retreat early, we understand." That was the Buddhist equivalent of you F*** ***** up. I stuck it out, barely, and managed to finish the 10 days without another outburst, but people avoided sitting near me after that. I had broken the sacred code of silence with almond-fueled weed giggles and forever tainted that mountain sanctuary with my nonsense. On the drive home, I blasted music and ate a Big Mac in the parking lot of a Walmart like a war survivor. Moral of the story: don't take edibles to a meditation retreat unless you want to become one with your embarrassment. So this happened about 2 years ago, but the emotional damage is still fresh. I, 25M at the time, was working at a marketing agency in LA, fresh out of grad school, trying to impress my new coworkers and generally act like I had my life together. Spoiler: I did not. One day we got a new project assistant, Sophia, who was stunning. I mean, jaw on the floor gorgeous. Colombian, smart, charismatic, and with a smile that could probably convince TSA to let her bring a full bottle of shampoo through security. We hit it off immediately, bonded over a shared love for horror movies and overpriced tacos, and started hanging out after work. She'd sprinkle Spanish into conversation now and then, and I, in my infinite wisdom, decided that telling her I was fluent in Spanish would make me look cool and worldly. The truth? I had taken 2 semesters in undergrad and remembered exactly 3 phrases: "Donde está la biblioteca?", "Me gusta el pan", and "Tu madre es una lámpara, don't ask." Of course, she lit up when I told her I was fluent. Que chivier. No sabía que hablabas español tan bien. I panicked and just nodded with a stupid grin. Thus began a week of ducking every opportunity to actually use Spanish, pretending I had forgotten words, claiming I was rusty, and redirecting conversations faster than a squirrel on Red Bull. Then she invited me to a weekend getaway. My cousin is getting married in Medellin, and I was going to go alone, but it'd be so cool if you came. You could practice your Spanish. At this point, I should have come clean. I should have said, "Sophia, I lied, I barely speak Spanish, and I'm a fraud." But instead, my dumbass said, "Absolutely, I'd love to go." So we flew out on a Thursday. The flight was smooth, and honestly, I was excited. The country was beautiful, the food was amazing, and I managed to get by for the first couple of days with smiles, nods, and the occasional sí, claro. But then came the wedding. The entire ceremony was in Spanish. The entire family spoke Spanish. And somewhere between the tequila shots and the reggaeton, her uncle pulls me aside. Now, let me paint a picture. This guy is massive. Built like he eats other uncles for breakfast. He's wearing a white suit, sunglasses at night, and has the kind of energy that makes you want to sit up straighter. He starts talking to me rapidly, laughing, slapping me on the back like we're old friends. I laugh too, nervously, not understanding a single word. Then Sophia shows up. She looks amused and says, Tio Jorge thinks you'd be perfect for a small job he has tomorrow. I told him you're super reliable. Sure, I say, heart rate tripling. Next day, I find myself in the back seat of a beat-up Land Cruiser at 6 a.m. with Uncle Jorge and two other guys, barreling down a dirt road into the countryside. No one explains what we're doing. Everyone's joking around in Spanish. I laugh when they laugh. I say sí when they nod. We stop at what looks like an abandoned barn. Inside the barn, there's a literal assembly line of what I pray are coffee beans. Spoiler, they are not coffee beans. Now I'm sweating bullets. I finally pull Sophia aside when we step outside to get some air and say in the dumbest whisper ever, Sophia, I don't actually speak Spanish. I'm not sure what's going on here, but I think your uncle is part of something not legal. Her face goes blank. You don't speak Spanish? I shake my head. Barely. Asterisk barely. Asterisk you told my entire family you were fluent. My mom asked you to say grace last night. You just said the names of fruits for like 3 minutes. Before I can answer, Uncle Jorge comes out, claps me on the shoulder, and hands me a duffel bag. I don't know what's in it. I don't want to know. But he points to the car and says something like, Levelo a la frontera. And suddenly everyone is looking at me like I'm Jason Bourne. Sophia steps in, saying something rapid and panicked, and the next thing I know, the mood has shifted. A lot. People are frowning. One of the guys starts yelling. I catch the words mentiroso and gringo. Not good. We get kicked out of the compound. Not gently. I'm talking bags tossed out the window, tires sprayed with something that might have been goat urine, and driven halfway back to town by a 13-year-old with a machete hanging from his belt like it's a goddamn fashion accessory. The rest of the trip was awkward, to say the least. We stayed in a hotel, not her family's house. Sophia barely spoke to me except to call me a moron fair. When we got back to LA, she ghosted me completely. Honestly, I don't blame her. But wait, it gets better. A week later, I get a package at my office. No return address. Inside is a small burlap sack of actual coffee beans and a note in beautiful cursive Spanish. I had to Google Translate it, but it said, next time just say no. Also, you owe us a pair of sunglasses. J. So yeah. That's how I went from pretending to speak Spanish to nearly becoming an accidental drug mule in Colombia. I now tell everyone I meet that I speak exactly zero Spanish, and I have developed a healthy fear of burlap sacks. TIFU by throwing a surprise party that almost destroyed my relationship, traumatized a child, involved a call to the cops, and made me temporarily infamous in my neighborhood's next-door group. So, my girlfriend, let's call her Jess, turned 27 last weekend. She's usually pretty low-key, but a few weeks ago she mentioned she'd never had a real surprise party. Like the walk-in, everyone yells surprise, cue tears and joy kind of surprise. Challenge accepted. I spent weeks planning. I invited about 20 of her closest friends, organized snacks, drinks, decorations, and asked her best friend to help get her out of the house that afternoon. I also coordinated with her older sister, who had the keys to Jess's place, so I could set everything up while Jess thought she was going to brunch. The day arrives. I get in early, decorate the apartment with balloons, streamers, photos, the works. I hid everyone in the living room and behind furniture. Lights off, silence on phones. Jess's friend texts me when they're a minute away. Everything is perfect. But here's where the first F-up happens. Jess is paranoid about break-ins. Like, double locks the door, sleeps with a baseball bat next to her bed, kind of paranoid. So when she walks in and the lights flick on with 20 people screaming from the shadows, Jess's fight or flight kicks in hard. She screams, throws the takeout bag she's holding, and punches her friend in the shoulder, which wouldn't be that bad if said friend hadn't just gotten shoulder surgery. Chaos. People laughing nervously, one person yelling about their drink spilling, her friend curled on the floor clutching their arm. But Jess still doesn't realize it's a party. She thought it was a home invasion ambush. She reaches for her purse, which has pepper spray in it, and only stops when she sees her sister holding a cake. Now she realizes it's a party. But instead of relief, she looks horrified, starts crying. Not happy tears, mind you, the ugly kind. I rush to hug her and apologize, and she just says, "I thought I was gonna die. Why would you do this to me?" Strike two. We get her some water. She calms down, says she needs a few minutes. Her best friend, still clutching her shoulder but trying to be a champ, takes her to the bedroom to cool off. I tell everyone to chill and give her a moment. People mill around awkwardly. I figure we can salvage this. Enter the next layer of disaster. Unbeknownst to me, Jess's 8-year-old niece was brought along by her sister. Nobody told me. And this poor kid saw her beloved aunt scream, throw a bag of Thai food, and nearly pepper spray a room full of adults. She starts crying too, not just because she's scared, but because she thinks something really bad is happening and nobody is telling her the truth. To make her feel better, someone gives her a slice of cake early and a little bit of soda. Bad combo. 10 minutes later, she throws up on the carpet. Then immediately starts crying again, this time because she thinks she ruined the party. Adults are now trying to comfort a traumatized child, clean up vomit, and keep Jess from having an emotional breakdown. I'm still optimistic. I try turning on music. That's when the downstairs neighbor bangs on the ceiling with a broom handle. Apparently the stomp dancing, screams, and chaotic energy were too much. I go downstairs to apologize in person and find out it's not just annoyance, it's panic. The neighbor heard the initial screaming when Jess walked in and thought a domestic violence incident was happening. She called the cops. Cue knock on the door. 2 uniformed officers stand there asking about a report of screaming and a possible assault. At this exact moment, Jess finally comes out of the bedroom, visibly upset but composed, sees the police at her door, and just laughs in the most unhinged way I've ever heard. She says, "Of course this is happening," and walks past them to sit on the stairs outside. The cops ask to come in. I explain the situation as best I can. Meanwhile, a guy at the party, who I didn't even realize brought weed, is now sweating bullets and whispering, "Are they going to search people?" The officers take a look around, confirm no one's dead or injured, then politely but firmly suggest we keep things down and leave. But the damage is done. Half the guests make excuses and leave. The birthday girl looks like she just went through an episode of 24, and I'm doing emotional triage on multiple fronts. I end up calling the party early, cleaning up while Jess lies on the couch like someone who just returned from war. Later that night, we talk. Turns out she was kind of touched by the effort, but also still in shock. She said the gesture was sweet, but incredibly misguided. She reminded me, gently, that her anxiety isn't just a quirk, and maybe startling someone with trauma isn't the best love language.
Fair.
I apologized 100 times, promised to stick to calm dinners and predictable brunches in the future, and we made peace. But the final cherry on this crap sundae came the next day, when someone in our neighborhood's next-door group posted, "Loud domestic incident with police response. Be careful. Possibly related to drugs? Teenagers vomiting and screaming?" Guess who got tagged in the comments? So yeah, I threw a surprise party that backfired so hard I may have permanently banned the concept in a 5-block radius. Jess is okay now. Her niece drew a crayon picture of Andy screaming with cake, which is now in the fridge. Her friend's shoulder will heal. The carpet, not so much. As for me, I'll be keeping surprises to birthday cards and leaving the adrenaline-inducing events to the professionals. This happened about 2 weeks ago, but the repercussions are still hitting like emotional aftershocks. I, 25M, have been dating my girlfriend, Natalie, 24F, for about 11 months now. Things have been great. She's smart, funny, has a fantastic taste in horror movies, and most importantly, she tolerates my obsession with those little plastic dinosaur skeleton models you get at museums. We've met each other's friends, but not each other's full families yet, mostly due to scheduling. Her family lives a few hours away, and mine is scattered across the globe. So, for the Easter weekend, she invited me to her family's big annual get-together at her parents' countryside house. She was excited and a little nervous, which made me nervous too. I wanted to make a good impression, so I bought a nice bottle of wine, practiced my firm but not aggressive handshake, and even wore pants that didn't have a single dinosaur on them. The first day there was great. Her parents were warm and welcoming, Her younger brother challenged me to ping pong like it was a sacred rite of passage, and her grandma insisted I call her Nana after only an hour. I thought I nailed it. Natalie even whispered to me that night, "They really like you." I went to sleep with the smug comfort of a man who had successfully infiltrated another family. Then came Sunday. After the Easter brunch, which included more deviled eggs than I thought legally allowed in one meal, Natalie's family surprised me with a little ceremony they do every year. It's called the adoption game. Apparently, every year they adopt a new honorary family member who made the most positive impact that year. They've done this for like 15 years, and past inductees include best friends, neighbors, and once even a plumber who fixed their pipes during a tornado. It was all fun and games at first. Everyone was given a blank piece of paper to write the name of who they thought should be adopted this year. I laughed and wrote down Nana, because she made a whiskey-glazed ham that made me briefly black out from pleasure. They tallied the votes with ceremony and fanfare, and then Natalie's dad stands up, clears his throat, and says, "This year's adoption goes to, drumroll please, Jake," which is me. Everyone cheers. Nana claps so hard her glasses fly off. Natalie laughs and kisses my cheek, and I feel like a rock star. Then they bring out this giant novelty certificate. It's printed in Comic Sans and says honorary family member, Jacob Jake Simmons, with gold stars and a small cartoon goat in the corner for some reason. Then it starts to get weird. Natalie's mom starts crying. Like, real tears. She hugs me and whispers, "You remind me so much of our late son." I didn't even know they had a late son. Her dad puts a hand on my shoulder and says, "You're one of us now. No backsies." Again, I think this is all just elaborate, quirky family stuff. But then they start assigning me roles. Natalie's uncle hands me a toolbox and says, "You'll be handling garage stuff now that you're the new family Jake." I try to laugh it off like, haha, sure, family Jake duties. But then Natalie's brother comes up and goes, "Can you help me with my taxes next week? Dad said you're good with numbers." I'm not. Still thinking this is all a bit goofy, I nod and say sure. But then later that night, while Natalie and I are getting ready for bed, she says something that still haunts me. You know, they really needed this. I ask her what she means. Well, when my brother Jake died, it tore the family apart. We tried therapy, group sessions, all of it. But then we started the adoption game as a way to cope. It's the first time moms cried happy tears since the funeral. And they really believe you were meant to come into our lives. And my brain does a hard reset. I realize I have accidentally taken on the emotional avatar of their dead son. They didn't just vote for me because I helped Nana down the stairs or brought a good wine. They voted for me because I had unknowingly filled a Jake-shaped hole in their lives. Even worse, I look like him. That's why Nana kept stroking my hair and whispering, "He would have loved you." At first, I thought she meant her husband. Nope. Dead Jake. The next morning, I tried to set some boundaries. I gently suggested that maybe we could call it a fun honorary title and not assign me emotional responsibilities. Her mom gave me this look like I'd just slapped her across the face with a ham. Her dad told me, "Family is for life. Especially now." Natalie thinks we should just ride it out. It means a lot to them, she keeps saying. It doesn't have to mean anything beyond that. But then her aunt mailed me a sweater with Jake number 2 hand-stitched on it. There was no return address. Only a post-it that said, "You'll grow into him." I tried talking to Natalie seriously, but she just brushed it off and said, "It's just symbolic." That same day, I got a calendar invite to Family Jake check-in every third Sunday. I feel like I'm being slowly absorbed into a cult of grief and casserole. Every time I try to pull away, they cling tighter. Her little cousin drew a crayon picture of me with angel wings and a halo and said, "Now we have 2 Jake angels." I don't even believe in angels. I barely believe in this reality anymore. I don't know what to do. I like Natalie a lot. Possibly love her. But I also don't know how to tell her family that I am not their reincarnated child sent from above to fix their hearts. I'm just a dude who showed up with a bottle of Pinot Noir and accidentally got adopted into a therapeutic tradition. I've stopped wearing the sweater. But they noticed. Oh, they noticed. TIFU by giving my neighbor the wrong USB drive and accidentally starting a suburban scandal. So this happened last week, and I'm still hiding from my neighbors like a raccoon caught stealing chips. For context, I live in a pretty chill suburban cul-de-sac. We're all on a friendly wave at each other level, occasionally chat during yard work, maybe swap tools or baked goods. That kind of thing. One of my neighbors, Linda, is a retired teacher in her 60s. Super friendly, always smiling, bakes killer banana bread. She's basically the unofficial mayor of our block. A few weeks ago, Linda mentions she's helping her niece with a school project, something about collecting and editing old family videos. She needed a USB drive with a decent amount of space to transfer the files. I'm a bit of a tech hoarder and have like a dozen USB drives in my desk drawer, so I tell her she can borrow one of mine. No big deal. Now here's where the screw-up begins. I grabbed a USB drive from my drawer. It was labeled storage 2, which meant, in my head, it was just a random backup drive with boring stuff. PDFs, old tax forms, maybe some old work presentations. I didn't even think twice. I handed it to her and told her to just delete whatever's on there if she needed the space. 2 days go by. I get a text from Linda saying she's returning the USB, and she also invites me to her house for coffee and to chat. I'm thinking maybe she wants help editing the video, or maybe she's just being polite. I head over. When I walk in, Linda looks different. The smile's still there, but it's got a weird twitch to it. Her husband is in the kitchen, not making eye contact, and there's a definite tension in the air, like a sitcom moment right before someone drops a bomb. She hands me the USB in this dramatic, two-handed way, like it's a cursed artifact. Then she says, very gently, I think there might have been something personal on here. Now I'm confused. Personal? Like tax returns? She lowers her voice and goes, some videos. Very private videos. At this point, I feel like I've just been sucker punched by the ghost of my own stupidity. My stomach does this Olympic-level backflip as I realize I gave her the wrong drive. Not storage 2, but storage 22, which I haven't touched in over a year. Let me explain what was on that drive. A few years ago, I was dating someone who was really into filming, let's say, adventurous home movies. All consensual, nothing illegal or creepy, just two adults having fun and being a bit overconfident in our cinematography skills. At the time, we thought we were very artsy and experimental. There were costumes. There were themes. One time, we tried to reenact a spy interrogation scene using only a flashlight and a trench coat. Apparently, I backed all of that up onto the drive, so I wouldn't lose it when I changed laptops. And then I completely forgot it existed. So now I'm sitting in Linda's floral-scented living room, sipping coffee from a mug that says live, laugh, love, while she subtly implies she's seen me tied to a chair wearing a fake mustache and reciting a fake Russian accent. She never directly says what she saw, but from the flicker of horror and curiosity in her eyes, I know. Oh, I know. And then her husband walks by and gives me this half-nod that is either supreme male solidarity or pure judgment. Hard to tell. I tried to recover. I stammered out something about backing up files from an old relationship and apologized profusely. I told her she could absolutely delete everything, and I would get her a clean drive ASAP. She just smiled and said, "It's okay. We're all human." But she said it in that voice people use when they find out someone they know has a hidden OnlyFans. I left shortly after that, mumbling something about needing to check on my laundry. Now here's the kicker. Since then, the neighborhood has shifted. I swear I'm not being paranoid. One of my neighbors, Greg, who never talked to me before, suddenly waved and gave me a thumbs up yesterday. His wife blushed and ducked behind a bush. Another neighbor offered me banana bread without any prompting. There's definitely a whisper network going on. I think Linda told someone, or more likely, the files got opened while her niece was working on the school project, and it just spiraled from there. To make matters worse, I started getting weird texts from an unknown number that just say stuff like, nice lighting, and where did you get the trench coat? I changed my number. I bought Linda a bottle of wine and left it on her porch with a card that said, sorry for the confusion. Hope your project turned out great. She hasn't responded. So yeah, TIFU by distributing homemade adult cinema to my 60-year-old neighbor and likely becoming an underground legend in my neighborhood. I now triple-check all my drives and have labeled that one with about 6 different warning stickers. I'm also considering moving or burning the entire USB collection. Moral of the story: never assume you know what's on an unlabeled flash drive, especially when suburban banana bread diplomacy is on the line. TIFU by accidentally creating a fake persona that now has a better life than me. This all started during lockdown, when I was unemployed, bored, and living on instant noodles. I was stuck in my apartment, rewatching the same 3 shows on Netflix, questioning my life choices. I've always been a pretty average dude, went to a mediocre college, got a decent but unfulfilling job, and had a social life that mostly revolved around texting, "Yo, we still on for drinks?" and getting left on red. Out of boredom, I joined a freelance platform to make some money writing blog posts and product descriptions. Most gigs were dry as hell, like 10 ways to use a garden hose. But one day, I got a weird client request. Write a bio for a wellness coach who specializes in sound healing, mindful leadership, and tantric communication. I didn't know what half of that meant, but the client was paying $50, which, at the time, was 2 weeks' worth of ramen and frozen burritos. So, I invented a person. Her name was Luna Sky. Yeah, I know. Cringe. But I leaned into it hard. Luna was raised in a Tibetan monastery, studied holistic communication in Bali, and lived off-grid in Sedona. She ran full moon drum circles and led cacao ceremonies. I wrote her bio like she was some kind of glowing earth goddess, kissed by the universe. The client loved it. In fact, they offered more work, writing blog posts as Luna. So, I became Luna. I churned out content like unlocking the sacred voice within and Tantra isn't about sex, it's about the breath. I did so much research, I accidentally started meditating and cutting back on caffeine. It was easy money, and I was starting to get weirdly good at it. Like, disturbingly good. A few months in, the client ghosted me. Vanished. But Luna had stuck around in my head. Out of boredom and maybe a little madness, I started an Instagram for her. Posted some royalty-free images of yoga poses, added quotes about surrendering to the divine feminine and embracing radical softness. The engagement was insane. I had 10K followers in 2 months. People were DMing Luna for advice. Someone mailed me, Luna, handmade gemstone soap. I figured I could monetize it. So I started doing live Candé sessions as Luna. I never showed my face, just hands, voice, ambient lighting, and some wind chimes I bought on Etsy. I did a whispery, ethereal voice that sounded like if Gwyneth Paltrow and a forest nymph had a baby. People were eating it up. Then came the offers. A publisher DM'd Luna, asking if she'd be interested in writing a book on sacred intimacy in the age of digital isolation. I laughed so hard I choked on my off-brand LaCroix. But then I said yes. And I wrote it. The whole book. In 3 weeks. High off matcha and delusion. Fast forward a year, and Luna's book is a minor cult hit. She's been featured in a few spiritual magazines. Some podcast called Soulcast named her one of the top 30 conscious creators to watch. Meanwhile, I'm still in the same apartment, still mostly broke, and I recently got rejected from a job at a vape shop. But here's where I really screwed up. A big wellness retreat in Costa Rica wanted Luna to headline a panel. Like, fly her out, pay her, give her a villa, the works. They assumed Luna was real, and I, drunk on my own made-up persona's success, said yes. So now I had to become Luna. Physically. For reasons I still don't understand. I decided to commit. I borrowed a friend's passport. She kind of looked like how I imagined Luna, and she was broke too, so she agreed. Dyed my hair auburn, wore flowing linens, and packed crystals in every available pocket. I even practiced speaking in Luna's voice for days. Somehow, security didn't catch the fake passport. I flew to Costa Rica as Luna. For 2 whole days, I lived in a wellness retreat paradise, sipping herbal tonics, giving vague spiritual advice, and leading a sunrise sound bath with a set of Tibetan singing bowls I'd bought on Amazon. The problem? I suck at improv. On the second day, Someone asked me to demonstrate a tantric breathwork session. I panicked and basically told everyone to hyperventilate with intention. A woman fainted. I blamed her energetic blockages, but things spiraled. People started asking very specific questions, like, what lineage of Anatara Tantra are you trained in? And which ashram did you study with Swami Rahakananda? I mumbled something about divine resonance and moonwalked out of the conversation. But the damage was done. The retreat host got suspicious. They Googled some of the qualifications I claimed Luna had. Turns out, Swami Rahakananda was the name of a fake guru from a satire site. That night, I came back to my villa to find a host and 2 other people waiting. One had a laptop open to a Reddit thread titled "Is Luna Sky a fraud?" With screenshots of inconsistencies in her posts, plus a photo someone enhanced from one of my videos that clearly showed my old apartment's ugly orange curtains. They confronted me. I tried to double down, but the jig was up. I confessed. Not out of honor. My voice cracked trying to keep up the Luna whisper. I was kicked out of the retreat, passport confiscated, still under investigation, apparently, and I had to take a 38-hour bus ride through Central America back to a country where I technically didn't commit international identity fraud. Jury's still out. Now I'm home. Broke. Ghosted by almost all my freelance clients. And Luna's following? It grew by 40% after the scandal. People love a redemption arc. Some even think I faked the exposé for ego death. There's fan art of Luna emerging from flames like a phoenix. I made up a fake person as a joke. That fake person became beloved. And now, I get to watch her soar while I DoorDash frozen yogurt to finance my court date. TIFU by accidentally sending a risque text to my mom instead of my girlfriend, and it caused a complete meltdown. So, this happened last week, and I am still not sure how I made it through the situation without completely losing my mind. I've been agonizing over whether or not to even share this because it's honestly pretty mortifying. But here we are. Let me set the stage. I've been dating this amazing girl, Sarah, for about a year now. Things are great between us, and we're constantly sending each other sweet and sometimes more intimate texts. You know, the kind of texts where you might throw in a flirtatious comment or maybe send a little suggestive meme. I'll be the first to admit, it sometimes gets a little steamy, but everything is consensual and we're both totally comfortable with it. Now, I'm not usually the type of guy who gets easily distracted by my phone, but that day I was a bit off. I was running errands and doing some shopping for a family dinner. As I was checking out at the grocery store, I had a few minutes to spare. So I decided to check my phone and catch up on some texts. Sarah had sent me a picture of herself in some cute lingerie earlier, and it made me a little excited, to say the least. In a moment of slightly too much enthusiasm, I quickly typed out a text to her that said something like, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've been thinking about how you looked in that outfit all day. You're so damn sexy, baby." It was flirty, a little naughty, but very much in our typical banter. I hit send and felt a little rush of excitement because I knew she'd appreciate the compliment. However, and here's where things took a dark turn, my phone was a mess that day. I had a million different text threads open. I had my mom texting me about the family dinner, Sarah some random work group, and about 5 different people asking me for various things. So, naturally, I thought the text I just sent was to Sarah, but as soon as I heard the ding of my phone, I realized I had made a crucial mistake. I had sent the text to my MO. Yes. You read that correctly. My mother, the woman who birthed me, raised me, and has, over the years, made me feel embarrassed in 1,000 different ways. But this was next-level mortification. It took a second for it to really hit me. I froze, staring at my phone as the realization dawned on me. I immediately opened the conversation with my mom, and there it was, the text I had just sent her. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've been thinking about how you looked in that outfit all day. You're so damn sexy, baby." My heart dropped into my stomach. I swear, I was seconds away from just curling into a ball and hoping the earth would swallow me whole. I immediately panicked. I thought about what I could do to fix this. The first thing I did was call my mom, yes, call her, because I wasn't sure if I should just leave it or try to salvage the situation. I mean, my options were limited at that point. If I tried to explain, she would definitely know I had messed up. But if I didn't say anything, there was no chance of me living this down. The phone rang. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings, and then she picked up. "Hey, honey. What's up?" she asked, clearly in a good mood. Hey, Mom," I stammered, my voice cracking. I think I just sent you a text that was meant for someone else." There was a pause on the other end, and then I heard a strange, almost nervous laugh. "Oh, well, I was going to ask about that. I wasn't sure if I should just pretend I didn't see it, or if you needed to explain something." I was nearly shaking at this point. I could feel my face turning beet red. "Mom, I swear, that text was for Sarah. Not you. Please don't think anything weird." "Oh, honey, I already figured out it was for someone else," she interrupted, her voice oddly calm. "But I do have to say, that was a very interesting message." I could hear her stifling her laughter, and I couldn't tell if she was trying to avoid laughing in my face, or if she was just trying to keep the situation light. Either way, it was making it worse. A million thoughts raced through my mind. Was she going to bring this up every time we spoke? Was this going to be the moment my mother officially knew way more than I ever wanted her to about my private life? I tried to salvage the situation by saying, "I don't know how I did that, Mom. I wasn't even thinking. I'm really sorry." "Well," she said, clearly holding back her amusement, "you don't have to apologize. But, you might want to be more careful about who you send those kinds of messages to. I mean, I'm your mother. I've seen a lot of things over the years, but this was definitely not something I expected today." I was practically dying inside. My mind was racing, but I just couldn't think of anything to say that would make this less awkward. Then, because I guess fate wasn't done punishing me, my mom casually added, "By the way, I'll be seeing you tonight at the family dinner, right?" At this point, I was convinced the universe was trying to actively destroy me. "Why, yeah, Mom. I'll be there," I said, my voice weak. "I'll see you tonight." I ended the call and sat there in utter disbelief for a minute, trying to figure out what to do next. Do I explain to Sarah what happened? Do I wait until we see each other and hope it just doesn't come up? When I got home that evening, I had no choice but to address it. Sarah was already there, and as soon as she saw me, she just grinned and said, "So, I heard about your little text mishap." I swear I almost fainted right there. "You saw?" I gasped, horrified. "Oh yeah. Your mom called me, told me the whole thing. She's actually been giggling about it all day," Sarah replied, shaking her head. "Honestly, I thought it was hilarious." At this point, I had no idea whether to laugh or cry. My mom had apparently called Sarah to clear the air about the text and had been telling her how embarrassed she was for me. She even gave Sarah advice on how to deal with her young and naive son, and how she'd probably have to teach him a thing or two about phone etiquette. I was mortified. Completely, utterly mortified. I had visions of my mom and my girlfriend becoming some weird united front against me, laughing about my epic failure every time we hung out. To make matters worse, my mom now refuses to let me live this down at every family gathering. She's even started jokingly texting me flirty messages, just to keep me on edge. I'm sure she's doing it just to get a rise out of me, but it's definitely making me reconsider texting anyone ever again. So yeah, lesson learned. Be very careful about who you text, especially when you're feeling a little frisky. And definitely double check before you hit send. Because if you don't, your mom will definitely be the first to know about your private life. TLDR, accidentally sent a steamy text meant for my girlfriend to my mom, who then called my girlfriend to explain it, leading to endless humiliation for me. Never again will I send risky texts without double-checking. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. TIFU by accidentally sending a highly embarrassing message to my boss, and it led to a chain of events I never could have predicted. So, to give you some context, I'm a 28-year-old graphic designer working at a small marketing firm. I've been there for about 3 years now, and over time, I've become relatively close with my team, including my boss, Greg. Greg is a good guy. He's always been laid back, a little quirky, and honestly very much the bro type. We have casual conversations about life, tech, and even gaming, so I never thought there would be any need to censor myself too much when texting or emailing him. Big mistake. It all started on a Wednesday afternoon. I had been working on a new pitch for a big client we were trying to land. It was a huge opportunity for the company, and Greg had asked me to be the lead on the presentation. I spent hours perfecting the slides, tweaking the design, and adding in all the little details that would make our pitch stand out. By the end of the day, I felt like I had nailed it. I was exhausted, but relieved that everything was ready to go. I decided to give myself a small break before finalizing everything and heading home. Now, I should mention that my coworkers and I have a group chat that's mostly filled with banter. It's one of those threads that started out for work stuff, but quickly became a mess of memes, funny videos, and occasionally, someone sharing their lunch. At the time, we were all just texting about random things, and I decided to vent a bit about how I was feeling. I sent a message in the group chat, complaining about how stressful the day had been, joking about how I was going to need a drink when I got home, and then I mentioned something about how Greg had been micromanaging a lot lately. I didn't say anything awful, but I did call out his bossy tendencies in a playful way. I didn't think much of it, but here's where things went horribly wrong. I had my phone open, and I clicked on Greg's name to send him a quick thank you message for the feedback he'd given me earlier. Instead of typing the message to Greg, my phone's autocorrect feature switched the chat to the group thread without me noticing. I clicked send, without realizing it. Here's the embarrassing part. I accidentally sent the message where I had vented about Greg's micromanaging directly to him. Yes, the boss I had been complimenting earlier, the guy who I respected and worked closely with, received a message that was meant to be shared in a group of coworkers. The message was completely unprofessional, calling him a bit of a control freak lately, and in a joking tone, I even wrote, honestly, at this point, I'm expecting him to start telling me how to breathe. The worst part? I didn't even realize what I'd done until I saw a reply pop up on my screen. It was from Greg. Hey, my name, I saw your message. I'm going to need you to stop by my office tomorrow morning. We need to talk. I froze. I immediately went back to the group chat and saw the message I had just sent to him. My heart sank. I was paralyzed with a mix of disbelief and sheer terror. How could I have been so stupid? I spent the rest of the evening in a panic. I started crafting excuses in my mind. Maybe I could explain it as a mistake. Maybe he wouldn't take it too seriously. Maybe he had a good sense of humor about it. But deep down, I knew this was a disaster in making. What if I just ruined everything? That night, I barely slept. My mind kept racing over the possibilities. What would Greg say? Would he fire me? Would he hate me now? Was I going to have to apologize in some elaborate, groveling email? It was a mess. The next morning, I walked into work, feeling like I was walking to my own execution. My palms were sweaty, and I could barely focus on anything except the inevitable conversation with Greg. When I arrived, I was greeted by one of my coworkers, Sarah, who noticed something was off. Hey, you good? She asked, sensing my anxiety. I tried to play it cool. Yeah, just tired. Long night. Sarah gave me a skeptical look, but didn't press. I nodded and headed straight for Greg's office. His door was slightly open, and I knocked lightly before walking in. Morning, my name, Greg said, giving me a half smile. He seemed calm, but there was a look in his eyes that I couldn't quite place. Was he angry? Was he disappointed? Good morning, Greg. You, wanted to talk. I managed to squeak out. He gestured to the chair in front of his desk. Yeah, come on in. Have a seat. I sat down, my stomach churning. He was looking at me with that same expression, and I couldn't read it. He folded his hands together, his fingers tapping lightly on the desk. So, my name? I got your message last night. He paused, and my heart dropped into my stomach. You know, the one about me being a control freak? I started to panic. I didn't mean that the way it sounded. It was a joke, and He raised his hand, cutting me off. I know. It's fine. I get it. You were venting, and honestly, I don't take it personally. But He trailed off and glanced at his computer screen for a moment. What really got me was your part about how you expect me to start telling you how to breathe. My face flushed red. I was just joking around. I swear. I didn't mean anything by it. Greg looked at me for a moment, his eyes still unreadable. Then he smiled. You know, I actually found that part pretty funny. I blinked in disbelief. Wait, really? Yeah, he said, leaning back in his chair. I get it. We've been really busy, and sometimes it might feel like I'm micromanaging more than I should. But honestly, I'd rather you say something like that to me than bottle it up and get frustrated. It shows that you care about your work, and you want to do things your way. I can respect that. I sat there in stunned silence for a moment, completely caught off guard by his response. You're not mad. Greg chuckled. Mad? Nah. I actually appreciate your honesty. But, next time, maybe double-check who you're sending your messages to, huh? I laughed nervously, relieved but still embarrassed. Yeah, lesson learned. We spent the next few minutes talking about work, and then he told me to go ahead and finish up the pitch. As I left his office, I couldn't believe it. I had just dodged a bullet. Moral of the story? Be very, very careful who you text, especially when you're venting about your boss. You might think it's just a joke, but one slip-up can lead to a conversation you'll never forget. Thankfully, Greg took it in stride, but I'll be triple-checking my messages from now on. This happened last weekend, and I am only now beginning to recover from the psychological fallout. So, 28M, work for a mid-sized marketing agency that tries really hard to feel like a cool startup, even though it's been around for like 17 years and still uses Outlook. My boss, Karen, yes, her real name, irony unmissed, turned 50 last week. Despite her name, Karen is awesome, a no-nonsense, snarky, high-functioning caffeine addict who once got tipsy at a holiday party and rapped Shoop flawlessly. We all love her. A few of us decided to throw her a surprise party at a coworker's house. Nothing fancy, just beer, cake, a karaoke machine, and an unnecessarily large charcuterie board. Since some coworkers couldn't make it in person, I volunteered to set up a private Zoom stream so remote folks could tune in and watch the surprise, say hi, and maybe witness Karen absolutely destroy Live In on a prayer. Here's where things begin to unravel. I have 2 Zoom accounts, one for work and one I sometimes use to stream for a small group of friends while I game. Like a moron, I had both logged in at once, on separate devices, of course, because why wouldn't I overcomplicate my life? At the party, I'm juggling setup, plugging in speakers, testing the mic, getting the cake ready. Karen was scheduled to arrive in 20 minutes. I panic when I realize I haven't sent the Zoom link yet. I copy and paste the link from my personal Zoom session, which I had created just in case the work one crapped out, and shoot it to the party group chat. Cool, except I also, in my flurry of multitasking, accidentally posted it to an entirely different group chat. Specifically, my very private, very not safe for work dandy group chat, which includes my best friends, my ex, and a chaotic dude named Brad who once filmed himself peeing into a bottle during a boss fight because he didn't want to lose DPS. Naturally, Brad clicks the link. And here's the kicker. I had screen sharing enabled by default and didn't realize it. I was also managing a playlist on Spotify via my phone, which was plugged into the speakers. As Karen walks in and everyone yells, surprise, the camera catches her joyful face, the confetti poppers go off, someone starts singing an off-key happy birthday, and Brad, from his dimly lit gamer cave, suddenly appears in the middle of the screen share, shirtless, wearing a horned helmet, and yelling, in full barbarian voice, "Behold, mortals! Your wretched village shall burn by my hand." It takes about 5 seconds for the horror to spread. Karen, mid-laugh, turns to look at the screen and says, "Is that a man in a thong?" Because yes, Brad was also wearing a very shiny chainmail thong. Panic ensues. Someone knocks over the cake. My coworker Dave chokes on a mini mozzarella ball. The Bluetooth speaker cuts to Brad screaming, "FIREBLLL," as he hurls a foam ball across his room. Then his video cuts out. I scramble to kill the feed, but of course, my fingers are now shaking like I've had 12 cups of espresso. I close the wrong window. Then I accidentally start mirroring my phone screen instead. So now everyone at the party is treated to the last text I received. From Brad. I'm coming in hot. Just casted flaming weapon. Hope this isn't another church soon. Karen, ever the legend, takes it in stride. She bursts out laughing so hard, she drops her wine. Someone yells best. Party. Ever. I am internally dead. But the night wasn't over. Later, when I finally got a chance to explain everything to Karen and apologize, she waved it off and said, honestly, I needed that laugh more than anything. That man needs therapy. Or a Twitch channel. Maybe both. I figured it was over. Until Monday. During our weekly meeting, which includes HR, Karen decided to lighten the mood by playing a clip from the party. Apparently, someone had recorded the whole thing on their phone, including the Brad incident. So yes, my entire department, including our very serious HR rep Jessica, who once gave someone a verbal warning for using the eggplant emoji in Slack, got to relive the moment a semi-naked LARPing barbarian hijacked a surprise party via Zoom. Jessica stared at me the entire time. No expression. Just judgment incarnate. Then she said, this is highly inappropriate. Then she added, but objectively hilarious. So now I live in infamy. People have started calling me the Portal Master. Brad, of course, is basking in the glory. He's already edited the footage into a cinematic trailer complete with music from The Witcher and uploaded it to his YouTube channel. It has 23K views and counting. The silver lining? Our client from a fantasy gaming company saw the clip, don't ask how, and thought it was a marketing stunt. We may actually land them as a client. Karen called it accidental genius. Me? I just wanted to eat charcuterie in peace. So this happened last Friday, and I still don't know how to recover my dignity or my sense of reality. I, 32M, live in a relatively quiet suburban neighborhood. I've been here about 3 years, keep mostly to myself, but I'm friendly in that wave while getting the mail sort of way. One of my neighbors, let's call him Todd, 40s? 50s? Age is confusing when someone wears Crocs unironically, is eccentric. Todd's one of those guys who still has a live, laugh, love decal in his kitchen and drinks pickled juice straight from the jar. He's always trying out random hobbies. 1 month it's bonsai trees, the next it's brewing his own kombucha. A few weeks ago, he caught me while I was dragging my trash cans out and said, "Hey, you busy Friday night?" Normally, I'd make up a lie. But I'd had a crap week. My girlfriend had just broken up with me for not being emotionally adventurous, whatever that means, and honestly, I was a few beers deep. So I shrugged and said, "Not really, why?" Mystery dinner party, Todd said with a grin like he'd just invented the concept. It's gonna be a hoot. Here's where I should have asked questions. But I didn't. I assumed it was going to be a potluck situation where we all bring a dish and awkwardly sit in someone's dining room trying to avoid politics. I thought, hey, free food and maybe a story to tell. I didn't know I was walking into my own personal Black Mirror episode. Friday rolls around. I dress semi-nice, nothing crazy, just a button-up and jeans. Todd's house is 3 doors down. I knock. He answers in a velvet robe. Not like a Hugh Hefner sexy one, more like guy who owns medieval swords energy. I laugh awkwardly, thinking it's a joke, but he just goes, "Ah, you're early. Excellent." That should have been red flag number 2. I walk in and the lights are low. Candlelight flickers in the hallway. There's a faint smell of incense and something else. Something meaty. The living room has been rearranged into what I can only describe as a low-rent escape room. There are 6 other people there. All strangers. No one talks. They just smile in this weird, strained way like they're not sure if they're being filmed. Todd claps his hands. Dinner guests, welcome. Tonight, your fates are in your hands. He proceeds to hand each of us a sealed envelope. Inside mine, a character card. Apparently, I'm Bartholomew the Butcher, a widowed meat magnate with a dark past. I'm told to stay in character and play along. At this point, I realize it's some kind of murder mystery dinner. Weird, but okay, I've seen Clue. I can roll with it. We all sit down at the dinner table. Todd's dining room has been transformed with cobwebs, a red velvet tablecloth, silver goblets, and a chandelier made of kitchen utensils. No joke. The dinner is served in courses, and each one is weirder than the last. First course, cold beet soup served in test tubes. Second course, something gray and jiggly that Todd called swamp custard. I took one bite and gagged. It tasted like expired yogurt and regret. Third course, a single, raw quail egg balanced on a cracker smeared with some kind of liver pate. I wish I were making this up. Between courses, we're supposed to act out our roles, but no one knows how. One woman next to me introduces herself as Lady Penance, widow of the Spice Baron, and then just mutters her lines like she wants to die. Another guy is fully into it, complete with an accent that shifts between British and vaguely Jamaican. Things escalate after the murder happens. Todd suddenly slams his fist on the table, lets out a blood-curdling scream, and pretends to die. But here's the twist. His body starts convulsing for real. He knocks over a goblet, sending red wine everywhere. We all think he's still acting until he starts gasping and his eyes roll back. Panic erupts. Someone shouts, "Call 911," but their phone is gone. Todd collected them at the start for immersion. I sprint to the kitchen, looking for a landline, but instead I find a massive, bubbling cauldron filled with some kind of meat stew. I wish I could say that was the worst part. It wasn't. Pinned to the fridge is a handwritten note. Do not stir the stew until the final reveal. At this point, I'm convinced this is either an elaborate prank or I've walked into a cult. I run back. Todd's twitching has stopped. One guy, bless him, tries chest compressions while yelling, "Don't die on me, Lord Slagthorn." A woman starts crying. Someone finally finds their phone in a fake plant and calls for help. Paramedics arrive about 10 minutes later. Todd is breathing but barely responsive. They take him out on a stretcher. Everyone is shell-shocked. The cops show up not long after, asking what happened. We're all standing around in costume, holding goblets and talking about Bartholomew the Butcher, and the officer just goes, "What the hell kind of eyes wide shut party is this?" Turns out Todd had a severe allergic reaction to something he ate, possibly his own swamp custard, which he made with a rare nut flour he ordered online from a trusted Sri Lankan spiritual healer. His words, not mine. Here's where the real TIFU kicks in. I, in my panic, had knocked over a bottle of red wine that soaked into a stack of old, handwritten papers on Todd's side table. Apparently those were original manuscript pages from a book he's been working on for 12 years. He wakes up the next day, texts me from the hospital with, and I quote, "My vision is gone. Bartholomew, why? I don't know if we're friends anymore. I don't know if I'm allowed within 100 feet of his house anymore. But I do know I'll never say yes to another mystery dinner." This happened last weekend, and I'm still recovering from the social damage. So, a little background. I, 28M, work for a mid-sized software company in Chicago. It's not some massive corporate behemoth, but big enough that the CEO isn't exactly someone I interact with day to day. I work in marketing, so I'm mostly in meetings with the sales and creative teams. Our CEO, Greg, not his real name, is one of those mid-50s guys with a permanent Bluetooth earpiece who always seems to be in a rush and has probably called someone a rock star, unironically within the last 24 hours. A couple of months ago, I helped plan our company's product launch event, which went really well. Greg apparently noticed and even complimented me in the all-hands meeting. My manager had to nudge me to realize he was talking about me. So, I guess I got on his radar. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. I get a very formal-looking email from his assistant asking if I'd be available to help coordinate a private event for the company. The assistant, Sarah, says she noticed my exceptional organizational skills and that Greg would appreciate my expertise. I asked if it was another product launch or networking event. She just said it was a special family function and that my job would just be to keep things on track. Now, I should have asked more questions. But I'm a people pleaser with a fragile ego and an almost pathological need for professional validation, so I said yes. I figured I'd show up for a couple of hours, maybe hand out programs, make sure the AV guys didn't forget their cables. Easy. The week of the event, Sarah gives me the address, some swanky-looking estate about an hour outside the city. I show up in my suit, iPad in hand, earpiece in place, for communication, not fashion, I swear. Fully ready to execute whatever timeline they had. Here's where things went sideways. The moment I arrived, someone mistook me for the wedding planner. Not a wedding planner. The wedding planner. I try to explain I'm not, but before I can get a word in, I'm handed a clipboard, asked if the florist has arrived, and told that the bride is asking about the chair setup on the south lawn. At that point, I think, okay, maybe I am the wedding planner? Maybe they outsourced the planning to me without telling me? Maybe this is some trust exercise or a weird executive thing where they throw you into the fire and see how you manage. So I panic. I go full send. I start coordinating. I find the florist. I redirect the chair crew. I yell things like, we're 10 minutes behind on draping. And has anyone seen the string quartet? I am deep in the role.
People are nodding at me.
I have authority. I feel powerful. I also text Sarah to ask if there's an actual planner coming, but she doesn't reply.
So I keep going.
Then I meet the bride. She's glowing, emotional, and stressed about the centerpieces. I reassure her. I calm her down. I even help fix her veil when it catches on a bush. She thanks me. Her mother thanks me. At this point, I have fully convinced myself that I am supposed to be doing this. And here's the worst part. The wedding is stunning. Like, absolutely beautiful. The guests are arriving. Music is perfect. Timing is perfect. I'm coordinating things like I've been doing it for years. People are giving me grateful smiles, and at one point the father of the groom, some silver-haired guy with a cigar, slaps me on the back and says, "Hell of a job, kid." Right before the ceremony starts, Greg finally shows up. He's in a tux, looking proud as hell. He walks over, gives me a big grin and a handshake, and says, "Glad you made it." So I'm like, "Hey Greg, congratulations. Everything's running smoothly." He gives me a weird look and says, "Appreciate that. Didn't expect to see you here so early." Now I'm confused. I say, "Well, I figure it's best to be here from the start, just in case anything came up." He frowns and says, "You didn't have to come all the way out here just for the dinner, but I'm glad you could make it." That's when it hits me. I wasn't supposed to be here yet. I was just invited to the wedding. As a guest. Like a normal human. Dinner and reception only. My invite had said 6 p.m. It was currently 3:45. And the actual wedding planner? She arrives at 4 o'clock on the looking confused as hell because apparently she got a flat tire and couldn't call ahead. Her name was Claire. She was wearing all black and looked very professional. When she sees me with a headset and a clipboard barking orders, she just assumes I'm an overzealous cousin trying to help and decides not to fight it. She literally lets me finish the entire ceremony. At this point, I'm already in too deep, so I just vanish into the crowd once the dancing starts. Then comes the real kicker. Greg gives a speech during dinner and thanks everyone who made this day so special, and then says, "Special shout out to my full name, who showed up early and went above and beyond." People applaud. His wife even gives me a little wave. So now I'm sitting there, in a suit that I've sweat through, drinking my 5th glass of wine, realizing I somehow accidentally planned my CEO's daughter's wedding. And the actual planner? She gives me a nod at the end of the night and says, "If you're ever looking for a side hustle, call me." To fill by crashing a funeral while high on edibles and dressed as a medieval knight. This happened last Saturday. For context, I, 32M, am not a frequent edible user. I've dabbled maybe 3 or 4 times, always with mild stuff and in the safety of my apartment. But last weekend, my friend Eric invited me to what he called a Ren Fair-themed barbecue in his backyard. He told us to show up in costume because he had gone all out with medieval decorations, music, smoked turkey legs, you name it. So, I think, awesome, and I dig out this old chainmail costume from a Halloween party years ago. It's full-on, chainmail hood, tunic, plastic sword, leather boots, the works. I even used some charcoal to grime up my face for that authentic knight who hasn't bathed in a month aesthetic. I Uber over, looking like I'm about to storm a castle, only to find Eric's backyard completely empty. No tents, no people, no turkey legs. I call him. Dude, he says, it's next Saturday. Cool, cool, cool. I'm now fully dressed like a deranged LARPer in a quiet suburban neighborhood, holding a plastic sword and standing in the middle of a cul-de-sac. Here's where things spiral. As I'm debating whether to call another Uber or just start walking to the main road, I remember I brought a little chocolate edible my buddy Dave gave me for when things get chill. I figure, well, I've got nowhere to be, might as well take the edge off while I wait for my ride. So I eat the whole thing, which was mistake number 1, because I had no idea it was 50 milligrams. Mistake number 2, I decide to go for a walk. I start wandering through this picturesque neighborhood, chainmail jingling, swords swinging, high as the ISS. After about 20 minutes, I hear music. Classical music. Soft and solemn. I follow it because, in my rapidly fogging mind, I believe I have stumbled upon a royal ceremony. That was the logic. I wish I were making this up. I arrive at what I now know was a small funeral being held in someone's backyard. Chairs neatly arranged, people dressed in black, an urn on a pedestal with a photo beside it. A soft-spoken man is giving a eulogy. But Jaime, absolutely zoot, sees this and thinks, ah yes, the king has died. So I stroll in. Not stealthily. Oh no. I strut in with theatrical purpose, clanking with every step, plastic sword sheathed proudly, eyes scanning the crowd like I'm about to proclaim a decree. People turn. Heads tilt. Someone whispers. But I don't register any of it as weird. I think I'm blending in beautifully. I make my way to an empty seat near the front, sit down, and solemnly nod at the woman next to me. She's crying. I assume she's a fellow noble grieving her liege. I whisper, he was a good man, and she gives me the most confused look I've ever seen in my life. And then it happens. The guy giving the eulogy stops mid-sentence. Dead silence. He looks directly at me and says, "Excuse me, who are you?" My brain tries to process this question, but all I can think to say is, "A knight of the realm, here to pay respects to the fallen." I swear to you, you could feel the confusion ripple through the crowd. Someone near the back coughs. A child whispers, "Mom, is he part of the show?" The eulogist just stares. I start sweating. Chainmail is not breathable, and the edible has fully kicked in. I'm melting inside my armor. My mouth is dry, and I realize I haven't blinked in like 3 minutes. The eulogist clears his throat. "This is a private service. Please leave." Now, most people would apologize and leave quickly. Not me. I stand, bow deeply, and say loudly, "May his soul find peace beyond the veil." Then, because I'm too high to judge reality properly, I draw my plastic sword, raise it to the sky, and salute the urn. A woman screams. People start murmuring. The crying woman next to me jumps up and backs away like I just pulled out a machete. Someone starts walking toward me. Definitely not to give me a hug. Finally, the little slice of brain that still functions says, "Run." I turn, nearly trip over my own boots and sprint, well, jangle out of the backyard. Full speed. Boots thudding, chainmail clinking like an angry tambourine. I hear someone yell, "Call the police," which turbocharges my escape. I end up running through a hedge, scratching the hell out of my arms, and burst onto a golf course like I've just time-traveled from the Battle of Hastings. I hide behind a sand trap for what feels like an hour, breathing heavily and regretting every life choice that led me here. Eventually, I Uber home, still in costume, still high, absolutely mortified. The next day, I texted Eric and said we need to move the barbecue to literally anywhere else. I have no idea whose funeral I crashed. I have no way of finding out. But somewhere out there, there's a family who now believes a mentally unstable knight hallucinated their grandfather's funeral. And honestly, they're not wrong. This happened a few months ago, but my family still brings it up whenever they want to see me internally combust from shame. For context, I, 29M, have been with my girlfriend, 27F, for 3 years. She's super into cheesy rom-com stuff and loves surprises, so I decided to plan something cute for our anniversary. My grand idea was a romantic scavenger hunt leading her through places we'd had important moments, ending at a fancy Airbnb where I'd cook dinner and propose. I spent a month planning it. Each clue was hidden in a place we'd shared a memory. Our first date spot, a weird little Thai food truck, the bookstore where we accidentally wore the same sweater, and the bar where she told me she loved me while drunk and then denied it for 2 days. I coordinated with friends and local staff to make sure the clues would be safe and the timing would work. It was stupidly elaborate, but I was convinced it would be perfect. Now, I wanted her to be genuinely surprised, so I didn't tell her anything. I just told her to take a day off work, wear something comfortable, and be ready for an adventure. That morning, I gave her the first clue with a coffee and left her to it. I tracked her progress through text updates from friends I had stationed along the route. Everything was going smoothly until the third clue. It was hidden in a little local park where we'd once gotten caught in the rain and kissed under a tree like it was a movie. I had a friend pose as a jogger and subtly point her in the right direction. But my friend called me 5 minutes after she arrived and said, "Dude, she's not here. Some other woman just picked up the envelope." My stomach dropped. I taped the clue under a bench with her name on the envelope, but I guess some curious stranger had found it first. We didn't plan for this. I frantically texted my girlfriend, but got no response. I started driving to the park while my friend looked around. On my way there, she finally called me. But instead of her cheerful, "Oh my God, this is so cute" voice, she sounded confused. "Hey, I'm in some lady's car. She said she was sent by you."
What?
"What do you mean?" "She found the envelope and said she was part of the game. She insisted she was the next clue, and I was supposed to get in. I thought it was weird, but the clue said, 'Trust the journey,' and she said your name." I almost drove off the road. I told her to get out immediately, but the woman was already driving. I told my girlfriend to turn on her location and call the police. Meanwhile, I was trying not to go full Liam Neeson. I had no idea who this woman was or where she got my name. But I did know that I somehow orchestrated a surprise anniversary kidnapping. 15 agonizing minutes later, my girlfriend called again. She was fine. The woman had stopped at a 7-Eleven to grab a drink, and my girlfriend just got out and called the police from inside. Turns out the woman was just off. Not malicious, just mentally unstable. She'd found the envelope, decided she was part of the game, saw my girlfriend looking around, and inserted herself into the whole thing. When the cops showed up, she didn't resist or get violent. She just kept insisting she was the spirit guide of love. My girlfriend was shaken, but okay. The police questioned her and me, and thankfully no one pressed charges. They did say, "This is the weirdest not crime we've seen all month." I believed them. Obviously, the scavenger hunt was canceled. We ended up getting takeout and watching The Office while I apologized about 47 times, and she laughed so hard she snorted pad thai out her nose. I thought that was the end of it.
But oh no.
About 2 weeks later, her mom invited us over for dinner. Her entire extended family was there. At some point during the meal, her uncle, who is a human version of a dad joke, raised his glass and said, "Here's to the man who tried to get my niece abducted," as a romantic gesture. The story had made the rounds. Then her cousin printed out a wanted poster with my face on it that said, "Romantic menace will create elaborate schemes involving strangers." They framed it. It's in their hallway. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my girlfriend posted a TikTok about it. It went viral. A few people called it the most wholesome kidnapping story of the year. One commenter said I should pitch it to Netflix. Another said they'd marry me on the spot. So now, anytime I meet someone new in her circle, they ask me if I'm that scavenger hunt guy. Yes. Yes, I am. The kicker? I still haven't proposed. After all that, it just didn't feel like the moment. We agreed to push it until we could have a normal, chaos-free day. So, I'm working on a new plan. This time, it'll be quiet. Simple. No strangers. No clues. No surprise rides from the spirit guide of love. I'm just going to take her to the place where we first said, "I love you," get down on one knee, and hope the only unexpected thing is her saying yes. This happened about 2 weeks ago, and I'm still dealing with the fallout, so it's as fresh as the rotten smell that started this whole thing. I live in a quiet suburb, the kind of place where people wave but don't really talk unless it's about lawn care or passive-aggressively complaining about trash bins. I'm 34, single, and work from home doing tech support. Nothing dramatic ever happens, which is why I think I went along with this in the first place. My neighbor, Mrs. Kellerman, is an 82-year-old widow who lives alone and is notorious for hoarding newspapers and yelling at squirrels. Everyone calls her the crypt keeper behind her back, but she's never been anything but sweet to me. Sometimes she bakes banana bread and leaves it on my porch. No raisins. A gem. Anyway, she knocks on my door one rainy Wednesday morning and says she needs help cleaning her basement. Apparently, there was a leak and it started to smell a little off. I say yes because, honestly, how often do you get asked to be a good Samaritan these days? So I show up with gloves, a mask, and zero expectations. The basement is a nightmare. Imagine a set from a horror movie, but without the drama. Just old newspapers, broken furniture, crates, stacks of canned food with labels faded to oblivion, and cobwebs so thick they sag like laundry lines. She's surprisingly spry, guiding me around, pointing at what to throw and what to keep. She insists on keeping every National Geographic magazine from 1971 to 1994. I pretend to understand. Hours go by. My back starts to ache. We break for lunch, which she insists I stay for. Cold tuna sandwiches and tepid lemonade. I thank her like she served a 5-course meal. Then we go back down. This is where it gets weird. In the far corner behind a rusty filing cabinet and a stack of boxes labeled Zmazmisk, I find a locked wooden chest. Like pirate movie style. Iron bands and everything. It looks comically out of place. I call her over. "Oh, that old thing," she says. "My husband's. Been locked for decades. I don't have the key." Naturally, my curiosity is now chewing through its leash. She tells me I can throw it out, but something about that doesn't sit right. It feels significant. So I offer to try and open it. She shrugs and says, "Go ahead. Just don't burn the house down." It takes me a day and a half to come back with tools. Bolt cutters don't work. I end up watching YouTube videos about antique locks and find a guy on Facebook Marketplace who sells skeleton keys. One of them works. The latch creaks open like a cliché. Inside the chest is a small wooden box, a heavy book bound in leather, 2 faded envelopes, and a gun. A small revolver, wrapped in an oily cloth. My heart skips like a scratched CD. I don't touch it. I open one of the envelopes. Inside is a black and white photo of a man, early 40s, wearing a fedora, smiling, and a handwritten note. "If you find this, it wasn't an accident. Keep digging." I yell for Mrs. Kellerman. She comes down slowly, and when she sees the open chest, her face does something I can't describe. Like her muscles forget what emotion they're supposed to convey. She asks what I open first. I show her. She picks up the book and cradles it like a baby. Doesn't say a word. I ask about the photo. She says, "That's not my husband." I ask who it is. She says, "That's who he killed." You ever have those moments where time slows down and you realize you've just tripped some ancient wire in someone's soul? That was it. She sits on the bottom step and tells me a story I'll never forget. Apparently, her husband, Stanley Kellerman, served in Korea. Came back changed. Not just the usual trauma, she says he got involved in something. Smuggling. Money laundering. Some post-war criminal syndicate that operated under the radar in the 50s. She thought it was all in the past until one day in 1963, he came home in blood-soaked clothes, mumbling about Frank and they're gonna come. She never saw anyone come. But he drank more. Got paranoid. Built a panic room in the basement, which she converted to storage after he died in '87. She opens the book. It's a ledger. Names, dates, amounts of money, locations. It's not just random scribbling. It's detailed. Coded but not well. I realize we're looking at some kind of crime journal. I suggest calling the police. She looks at me like I just offered to microwave a cat. "No," she says. "This dies with me." You didn't find anything. Do you understand? I don't. But I nod. We put the stuff back. Lock the chest. She tells me to leave it in the basement and she'll handle it. I go home. That night, I can't sleep. My brain is on fire. I Google the name on the photo envelope, Frank Doyle. Turns out he was a small-time mob associate in the 60s, disappeared in 1963. Case cold as Antarctica. I'm now in a situation where I either ignore what I found, respect a sweet old woman's final wishes, or become the guy who uncovers a 60-year-old murder tied to a forgotten criminal network. I don't sleep for 2 days. Then, 3 nights later, her house catches fire. Basement goes up like a kiln. They say it was faulty wiring. She makes it out alive but suffers smoke inhalation. She's in the hospital now. Unconscious. No visitors. The chest?
Gone. Ash.
The weird part? The chest wasn't in the spot we left it. Firemen said it was by the stairs. I think she tried to move it. Maybe tried to hide it elsewhere, and someone found it. Maybe the fire wasn't an accident after all. I don't know. But ever since then, a black SUV has parked across from my house 3 separate times, for hours, without moving. No plates. Windows tinted black. Could be nothing. But I haven't slept in my bed in a week. I keep moving around, staying at friends' places. Laptop stays with me at all times. I made a scan of the ledger, uploaded it to a cloud account, scheduled a timed release if anything happens to me. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to help an old woman clean her basement. Now I'm checking my rearview mirror like a B-list spy and wondering how much danger a tuna sandwich and a skeleton key really cost me. TIFU by giving my neighbor's dog a funeral while they were on vacation. So I, 29M, live in a relatively quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where people wave but don't really talk much unless someone's lawn gets too long or someone's kid does something TikTok-worthy in the cul-de-sac. Now, across the street from me lives a sweet elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Hammond. They're probably in their early 70s and have this fluffy, white dog named Sir Biscuit. Biscuit is an old, grumpy Bichon Frise who waddles more than he walks and looks like a cotton ball someone forgot in the dryer. Despite the fact that Biscuit barks at literally everyone like we owe him money, I always liked him in that grumpy old man dog kind of way. Last week, the Hammonds stopped by to let me know they'd be going on a week-long cruise and asked if I could take care of Biscuit. Nothing intense, just feed him, walk him once a day, make sure he doesn't die. I agreed.
Easy.
I work from home. Plus, I figured I'd rack up some karma points with the neighborhood elders. They handed me a key and a detailed care guide for Biscuit that was like 5 pages long. It included notes like he doesn't like to be stared at for too long and he prefers jazz in the mornings. Whatever. I admired their dedication. The first few days went fine. Biscuit glared at me every time I came in, but he ate his food, tolerated his walks, and seemed to enjoy my attempts to play Miles Davis during breakfast. Then came Friday. I walked into their house as usual, only to find Biscuit laying motionless on the rug by the fireplace. At first, I thought he was sleeping, so I called out to him. Nothing. I walked closer. Still nothing. I crouched down. No breathing. No tail wag. No reaction to me saying, "Want a treat?" 3 times like a moron. I freaked out. This dog had clearly passed away on my watch. I panicked. My girlfriend, Emily, told me to stay calm and call the vet, but all I could think about was how I was going to have to tell these sweet elderly people that their dog had expired on my shift. So I did what any well-meaning idiot would do. I decided to give the dog a proper send-off. First, I tried calling the vet they listed, but it was after hours. I left a voicemail that probably sounded like a man confessing to involuntary manslaughter. Then I thought, okay, time to give Biscuit a dignified farewell. Emily, who is a far better person than I am, was both confused and reluctantly supportive when I told her my plan. We wrapped Biscuit gently in a towel, placed him in a cardboard box I had left over from a Costco run, and taped a note on the lid that said, "Rest in peace, good boy." I Googled how to bury a pet, and we drove out to my friend Dave's property on the edge of town, where he has a lot of land and an inexplicable lack of questions. Under the soft glow of an LED camping lantern, and with an embarrassing amount of solemnity, we dug a hole near a tree, said a few words about Biscuit's tenacity and refusal to be pet, and buried him. I even carved SB into a small stone and placed it as a headstone. It was, in hindsight, extremely dramatic. Feeling both proud and broken, I emailed the Hammonds with the subject line, "Some difficult news." I explained that Biscuit had passed peacefully and that I had done everything I could. I told them he was buried respectfully, and I was sorry for their loss. The next day, I received a call. Mrs. Hammond sounded confused and also kind of weirdly cheerful. She said, "Oh no, dear. That wasn't Biscuit. My soul left my body." Apparently, Biscuit had a nap twin, a plush dog bed with a stuffed white toy that looks exactly like him, made custom from some Etsy shop that turns pets into plushies. It was, according to her, so lifelike it's spooky. I had buried a stuffed animal, an inanimate object, a glorified pillow. I tried to explain, mortified, but she just laughed and said, "That's okay, dear. It's kind of sweet, really. Poor little fake Biscuit." But oh no, it doesn't end there. While all this was happening, Biscuit had actually been at her daughter's house. They hadn't wanted to stress the dog with cruise arrangements, so they had quietly made the switch the night before they left. They hadn't told me because it would have been too much trouble. So I had been going to their house every day, feeding air and playing jazz to nobody. The real Biscuit was living his best life in another zip code. I had spent 5 days pampering a vacant house, then buried a plush toy like it was a Viking warrior. The Hammonds returned yesterday. They brought me back a souvenir mug from the cruise that says, "Best dog sitter ever." I'm pretty sure the sarcasm was unintentional, which makes it worse. Now every time I take out the trash, I look across the street and see Biscuit barking at me like he knows. Like he remembers being replaced by a dead-eyed cotton clone and being buried in the dirt by a man who thinks jazz is a canine dietary supplement.
So yeah,
that's how I gave a funeral to a dog that didn't die. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.